Hey everyone, my name is Charlie and today marks the beginning of another reading vlog. It's Wednesday. I chose to take a few days off from vlogging and the internet and social media really because I felt like I hadn't really dedicated any time this month to getting stuff done. I think because I fell ill during the first week of July and then last week was a lot of shenanigans. Sorry, I'm looking at my hair more because I realise how poorly it's gone today. My obsession with my hair knows no bounds at this point. So I've taken some time away from the internet for the last few days and decided, as I say, to dedicate that time to reading. On Monday, I finished reading A Game of Hide and Seek by Elizabeth Taylor, which means I have now read every single one of Elizabeth Taylor's novels, and I believe that I saved the best till last with this one. Here we begin with the character of Harriet when she is a teenager and she becomes infatuated with this boy called Vesey or Vasey. I never figured out how to pronounce his name during the reading of this book. And they're charged with looking after these two children, and Vesey isn't really a corrupting influence, but he does like to play a few games, which gets him in trouble with the children's mother, and he ends up shipped off elsewhere. Naturally, Harriet is heartbroken. That's the first chapter. Then she doesn't really see much of Vasey for all of those years, ends up getting this job at a shop, and this was the most hilarious portion of the book to me, was when Harriet was working at this shop. It felt like Elizabeth Taylor had managed to capture these people so well, and the camaraderie that comes with working with people and recognising that you wouldn't have been friends or acquaintances with one another if you hadn't been thrust upon each other by employment. She falls in with this man called Charles. Many years later, Vesey returns to her life. And it's a case of will they, won't they, will they embark upon an affair? Something Elizabeth Taylor does well within this novel is that there is no talk as to whether Harriet or Vesey are having an affair. It's just the supposition of other people. And when she first meets her husband, the people at the shop are certain things are occurring that aren't occurring. So there's a lot going on in this novel about what other people perceive as opposed to what's actually going on. And it mentions brief encounter at one point, which made me chuckle because that had been what I was thinking of whilst I was reading this book. It was Elizabeth Taylor at her best, I think. I found this her funniest work, but I also felt like the ending wasn't just there for shock value, as being the case with other books, or it had a damp squib of an ending where it didn't really reach any sort of resolution. It just felt like one of the most fully formed works by this author, and I was glad that I had saved this one until last. This was actually her fifth novel, which seems strange to call it her best, but I have enjoyed most of the Elizabeth Taylor that I read, and as I've continued to say, even when there's been a book by her that I haven't liked overall, there has always been something in there within the writing that I have appreciated. So thrilled by this book and to have read it. Then I decided to go to the final two books on my Alternative Women's Prize long list. This is something that I created because I have been dedicated to reading all of the books from my shelves this year, and so I wasn't reading anything from the library or buying new books to follow on with prizes as I have done in previous years. So I created my own long list of books by women authors from my shelves, and the penultimate one I had to read was The Furrows by Namwali Serpell. I read The Old Drift years ago, and there was something towards the end of that I didn't necessarily like, but I like the author's prose. Here we have the character of C, whose brother is drowned in the first chapter, but his body is never recovered. He is simply presumed dead. And then many years later, she meets a man who looks like him and has the same name. Then, in another chapter, we are told an alternative way that Wayne died. And subsequently, there is another chapter in which Wayne dies in a different fashion. The only thing that unites them is that in each case, his body isn't recovered, and when she meets him as an adult, a tragedy occurs. But this book feels like a whole host of ideas that don't reach any sort of resolution. That had the touches of life after life and the surreal about it, but the issue is that that first section is never resolved, and then we move into part two, which is from the perspective of Wayne, who is this man that she's met, and there is this case of, is this the Wayne that C has lost? Is this her brother? Or is this just man who's claiming to be him? There's this real sense of unease throughout, and this guessing game as to who this man is and what actually happened all those years ago, but you don't get any real resolution or answers. It just felt like the author had thrown a load of tales in here to try and create a second book. It was like, well, this could have happened, this could have happened, this could have happened. And it was a case of could-be's. And I don't know whether that's what the author was trying to say about grief, but I just didn't care for it. Yesterday, read 250 pages of How We Disappeared by Jing-Jing Lee, which is the last book I have to read for my Alternative Women's Prize TBR. I have 80 pages left of this book, and I'm looking forward to finishing it later today. This follows two characters, Wang Di and Kevin. Wang Di is relating what happened to her during the war. I believe that the blurb of this book actually spoils a lot of what happens, but it deals with the hardships of war and what that meant for women in Singapore. It is part of the world that I know little about when it comes to the Second World War. In terms of that, shone a light on stuff that I didn't have knowledge of before, whilst also telling a rather human tale of loss and devastation, really. I've liked the author's writing and her craft. However, I do feel like it could have been shorter. It feels bloated with repetitive scenes, and part of me thinks that that repetition is there for a reason, but it also feels somewhat unnecessary. And there are certain parts of this that don't add anything to the narrative, really. Indeed, for the last 100 pages, despite really enjoying those first 180 pages, I have felt as though we're just going over the same old ground, because it's felt somewhat predictable given what we learn through Kevin's chapters about what happened in the past. So I'm going to finish reading this one today, and I had planned on reading one of the novellas in No Love Lost by Rachel Ingalls, which is a collection of novellas that I had hoped to finish this month. But I have received a phone call to tell me that The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery, Hurst by Katie Lumsden is ready for me to pick up from the bookshop that I visited, Simply Books in Bramwell, at the weekend. They rang me yesterday to tell me that the book was available, but that it was damaged. And they were asking whether it was a gift, and I was like, I don't care that it's not a gift, this is for me. And I know me, I would like a pristine edition of the book that cost me nearly £20. I don't mind having a book that's creased when it's secondhand, but when I'm paying full price for something, I expect it to be in a good condition. And so that's apparently available. And I do feel sorry for the person who works there, because I am quite a mean person when it comes to books. I am particular, people know this about me, and you know, if I go shopping there more and more, they're going to recognise that I am this very particular person. In terms of the second Alice Valentine book, yesterday I had a significant moment of doubt. I had completely edited one chapter how I wanted it, and this is from the middle of the book, so we're past the middle of the book now with this restructuring. And then I'd done the next chapter as well, and the next bit needed working on and needed a lot more writing to fix continuity things and sort stuff out. I just sat there thinking, what have I done to myself? Why did I choose to do this? I know in the long run it's going to mean that this book is as good as it can be before I find some beta readers and then get an editor for it. But it keeps pushing stuff back, and now I'm like, I wanted this book out in November. Is that still a possibility? The cover's there, the blurb's there. It would just be a case of like, you know, formatting everything and printing it. But ooh, it's a tough one. I was going to work on something for the writers group tomorrow because it's our read around and our last meeting until September, but ultimately I decided not to do that. Like I think I said in the last vlog, I did come up with a new story idea last week. Well, it's an old story idea, but I figured out some dialogue and I thought about taking the dialogue along with me, but I don't know that I will, because when it comes to me just writing dialogue between characters, that is very early stages. That dialogue might not even make it into the book. I have so much from when about 2 years before I started An Heir to Murder, where I just had characters communicating with one another and it was just dialogue. And that helped me to establish what their relationships were like. A lot of that doesn't make it into the book, so I don't really know that it's fair to share that. I have talked for the longest time for a vlog, so I am going to go and probably actually record the videos that have to go out today. Now, I also have to walk the dog. That's no issue. Me and Stella have had a few good walks over the last few days. Monday was a bit annoying because everybody kept saying when we went past their dogs, oh, I'm sorry, they're not friendly, they're aggressive. I'm just like, Stella just wants to play. Can we have some of her friends, please? And then yesterday I met the dog that I call her boyfriend, that we haven't met in months. And it was just nice to see them together because they have a lot of fun when you put that pair together. Anyway, I'm gonna see you. It's Friday and I am back in work for the first time in 10 days, having taken the time off for my birthday. The books are in a disarray because nobody else does them when I'm not here. I have requested that people don't sort the books, but if they just put them on the shelves, that would be fine, but they seem to forget that memo every time. I'm also wearing the same shirt that I was wearing on Wednesday. I'm an outfit repeater, worse than Lizzie McGuire. I have always said this. Finished reading How We Disappeared by Jing-Jing Lee. That had this case where completely coincidentally the ending ended up having parallels with the Furrows by Namwali Serpell. Didn't end up liking How We Disappeared as much as I believed I would. I did read it rather quickly and I'm thrilled at the amount of reading that I did whilst I was off work. The writing that I got done as well. Like I was saying to a colleague yesterday, that's one of the worst things, is that I get into this really great rhythm with my writing and my reading and I'm like, these are proper work days, this is what I'd like, and then everything goes to pot when I come back to work and it disrupts the rhythm. Also started a Patreon page. I'm not going to get into why I created the Patreon page, but I've so far created 2 tiers on there. I can't remember all the rewards, but I will leave a link in the description to that. It's obviously, there is no obligation to join or sign up. I have said that for one of the tiers, there are only 2 at the moment, so for the higher tier, quarterly I would do writing workshops and bi-monthly I would hold a writer's surgery, and I would still like to do that. If anyone can think of any ways to improve that or other things that they'd like to see offered, then let me know in the comments about that. I have started reading The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery Hurst properly now. I got my copy on Wednesday, and just like I went through this whole saga where they wanted to sell me a damaged copy, and then this has come and it's damaged anyway, and it sounds exactly like the first copy, so I don't think that they ever actually bothered to change the copy. I think they're fibbing to me entirely, because this has got colour down the spine, this has got a tear at the top of the page, it's not a pristine edition, and I've just seen Gina of Gina Stanya Books has had an issue with a torn cover too, and I think because of the type of paper that the dust jacket's made of, I think that it very easily tears, but I am thinking that I might gift this copy that I've got to somebody once I've finished with it, and then I'll go and buy a more pristine copy. That's just the type of person that I am, but loving it. This is a complete departure from Katie's first book. It is so humorous and insightful and gives knowledge of the Victorian era that I didn't previously have, and I appreciate wholeheartedly. Getting further on with the editing, the major restructuring of the second Ellis Valentine book, with the hope of now being finished by next week, and then I'm hoping to again offer this call out to beta readers that I haven't done yet because of trying to get it all restructured first. And then I have got some plans for writing in August, so it's a bit all go really, but for now I am going to go and sort books, drink coffee and shout at managers. I had a right run around this morning trying to find my car keys. I'd forgotten when I got in yesterday. I'd gone straight up to my bedroom because my manager asked to borrow the shirt that I was wearing yesterday because they're going to a Caribbean party and wanted a Hawaiian shirt, so I needed to get that off, get that washed up, be dry for today because our dryer is currently broken. And so my keys had got wrapped up in that and I hadn't noticed, and they must have I must have slept on my keys all night and didn't know where they were. Anyway, so that was an extra 20 minutes, so I'm a bit late today. Not late because I'm not contracted till 9 o'clock and it's currently only 22, but I like to get my clips recorded and then before anyone else gets here, and they're likely to be here quite soon, so it's going to be a short one today. Whilst I didn't read much yesterday, indeed I didn't read anything yesterday, I am proud of the reading we did this week. You know, I've finished 3 books and I am getting through The Trouble with Mrs Montgomery Hurst by Katie Lumsden. Very much enjoying that, and I don't think I'll have had it finished by Monday, but my hope is to finish it on Tuesday and then maybe try and get another book in before the end of the month. Very glad that for the most part I stuck to my TBR, apart from the books that got unhauled immediately. If, like back in that video, when if people told me that they didn't like a book, I was like, right, that's enough for me, I'm getting rid of it, because I was reticent about it anyway, and there's no thing of me getting them back because those books have sold now. Also, chatted to my manager yesterday, there was no big disagreement. She agreed that I could put a lot more books out and do them for 50p until we've got through the books that we've got and got rid of a bit of the backlog. The biggest issue was that our ragman doesn't pay us for the rag books anymore, whereas our previous one paid us by weight, and that's been a big issue that we've had within charity shops really, is finding somebody who will pay us for our ragged books, which is only something that's been around for us for about 14 years. Prior to that they just got thrown away, but that adds a weight issue to our skips, and the people who take our skips won't take them if they're too heavy, and it's a whole thing and everything just backs up. So this is the situation we're in. I said I'll be a little less strict, but there are certain cases where if a book's fallen apart there's absolutely no way I can sell it, and there are books that I know won't sell anymore. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code used to always be in charity shops. Now if you see a copy, there's every chance it's going to stay there for about 400 years. Also, over the next week, I am hoping, I'm giving myself till Wednesday to properly finish this first, well, it's not even a first round, the restructuring of Alice Valentine before I send it to the beta readers. And I've done that because in August I want to be working on something different. And I think I know what that is. I'm hoping I do. But I don't know because there are 3 projects I currently want to be working on. Maybe 4, and I don't know where to go next. It's whoever speaks to me, and currently all of those characters are vying for attention. But I now have 2 patrons on Patreon. I feel like I'm doing exceptionally well. It's thrilling really. I am going to be releasing some excerpts from future projects, from past projects. I'm going to be releasing the novel on there that got rejected by agents, and I'm going to do that as a serial really. So if you want to read a really terrible young adult fantasy novel filled with tropes from about 17 years ago, then get on board with that, because it's truly awful and it's going to be an experience for all of us. I might even provide commentary, we'll see. But for now, I'm off. This has been a funny sort of week in terms of the vlog, but I hope that has been okay with you. If you want to chat about anything that I've talked about in this video, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, because until next time, that is all.